Welcome to Buffalo Gameday Recap. I'm Thad Brown along with AJ Feldman. I am here in Indianapolis where the Bills dispatched the Colts 30-20. AJ, by the way, first time in 12 games the Colts played a game that was decided by more than one possession. They were the last team this year to play such a game. Every one of their games before this one had been one possession. The Bills were the first team to, finger quotes, blow them out. That, of course, means that they must not even stop and go. They're going directly to the Super Bowl because they were the team that finally hammered the Colts.
Exactly. Those are the rules deep in the rule book. You know, we learned about 2 feet, both feet, 1 feet twice. There's a paragraph when you beat the Colts by more than a score, you win the Super Bowl. So congratulations, Bills fans. Go crazy.
This game to me was dominated by the Bills making big plays on defense. And it wasn't like the defense played superb. I mean, better in the second half for sure. But the first half was kind of a typical Bills run D game. Jonathan Taylor was out the gate a couple times, but it didn't matter because the Bills scored a touchdown on defense. They stopped the fourth down with a sack. They forced 3 other turnovers in this game. You know, it was 7 different players with 8 total sacks and turnovers. You had, linemen getting interceptions, defensive backs getting sacks. I mean, we've talked about it with this Bills team all year. This is a team that they've got contributions from all over the roster, and that's how they win games. And, I'm going to make a point about where the Bills are at a little later on in the show. But in terms of the breakdown of this particular contest, it's because the Bills got a whole bunch of guys who can make plays, and they did in this game. From Quentin Jefferson, who just showed up, to Taron Johnson, who's probably the best guy in the defense right now.
Yeah, like you said, 4 turnovers and then the turnover on downs, which, for all intents and purposes is a turnover. That's 5 extra possessions for an offense that was missing Amari Cooper, Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid, played 2 snaps in the second half, wasn't himself for most of this game. They needed all the help that they can get because they were not spectacular. We'll get to that later. Josh Allen throwing 2 interceptions. The offense as a whole not really clicking. The run game prior to that final drive where they kind of methodically worked their way down the field really wasn't, a standout play by any stretch of the imagination. This Bills team needed all the help it could get. And, my favorite or least favorite cliche is, the Bills saying it's hard to win a football game in the NFL. Well, especially string together 5 straight wins with your offense so depleted. That's tough to do on the road. And they were able to get it done. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't exactly ugly, but they grinded out a win. It was a professional win. They beat a decent team by 10 points, really by 17 in their own building, and now they get to look ahead to next week's big Chiefs game.
And this was a game too where the Bills kind of showed right off the bat they were the better team. They get the pick 6 right off the bat, and when you're the more talented team, I always think that you want to make that point right away. Don't give the other team an opportunity to hang around. And the Bills at least initially did that. Now, from there, middle of the second quarter, Indy obviously had a lead for a little while. The Bills were able to rally from there. But the fact that the Bills got on top first, I thought was obviously a great start. But being able to rely on this defense to create, like you said, possessions, to push this win on their own without having to force Josh Allen to do too much. And he still had some ridiculous stuff in this game, I think is a quality win. And to your point about putting 5 wins together, this Bills team so far has not had the dumb loss. There was no Jacksonville Jaguars 9-6. There's no road trip to the Jets where they lose to Zach Wilson. There wasn't Jonathan Taylor going for 4 touchdowns and $185 on the ground. And I don't know whether this means this Bills team is better than past incarnations. I mean, a part of that 8 wins is obviously everybody but the Arizona Cardinals is under 500 right now. But regardless, the Bills are not succumbing to, we're just not going to show up this week. We're going to be flat this week. And today, the example you saw, I think, and primarily, was all the different guys on defense making plays.
And when you looked at the schedule at the onset of the season, it wasn't exactly a pretty slate. You had, the 2 big tough stretches, going into the season at the Dolphins, Jags, Ravens, Texans, Jets. Coming up upon us, Chiefs, 49ers, Rams, Lions. Those are tough slates. You're going to lose some of those games. Nobody goes undefeated in the NFL, obviously, except for the Patriots.
We'll see.
Except for Alex, yeah. But to weather the storm through those tough stretches, you got to take care of business, like you said. And they have done a really good job of getting the wins when they matter most, or, when they need to. The teams that they
almost to your point, getting the wins when they matter least, which is still important, to win these games. You when you dump these stupid games, this is why you go to Arrowhead in January, and now look, unfortunately, the Chiefs are still undefeated. So right this second, yes, the Bills would still have to go to Arrowhead in January, but they're giving themselves a chance to hang around, whenever the Chiefs magic act ends and the smoke disappears and we find out what that Kansas City team really is, Buffalo is going to be in a position to potentially take advantage.
Yeah, and for a roster that we all thought coming into the season, and it's probably turning out true, wasn't as talented as the ones in years past, any little bit helps. Flipping, a 2-3 matchup in the playoffs in your building as opposed to on the road against, the Ravens or the Texans, that can mean a lot. So, important to string across these wins, and a good rebound by the Bills after those two losses to rack off 5 in a row. Sean McDermott's done a good job in his tenure as the Bills head coach. When they go on losing streaks, they back them up with nice long winning streaks.
Credit to Greg Rousseau in this game. He's a guy that's, gotten a lot of pressure. He's been really good this year. Hasn't always produced the sacks. Big sack fumble in this one. I know, obviously, Josh Allen basically gave it right back with an interception, but still a monster play. Taron Johnson talked about the pick six was a play where he thought he had gotten beaten, or the similar concept is something he had gotten beaten on earlier in the year. He assumed the Colts had seen it, wanted to try him, and he had the answer in this game. So, it's obviously team improvement, but it's individual guys stepping up. And Taron Johnson, I think, is a star on this team. Greg Rousseau might be getting there. And for this team, you talked about it before about we thought start of the year this team might not be as talented. Well, if Rousseau develops a couple notches, if Taron Johnson, not that there's much space for him to go to, can develop a couple notches, well, now you've got more stars. Now you've got better talent without having to go out and find a new player. And you saw some of the results of that in this game. Let's talk about the offense, though, for a second here. Like you said, it was not super pretty. And really, I think we should have expected that. I want to start with the secondary guys that stepped up in this game. I thought Mack Holins might have an opportunity to be a contributor in this game. He's been a guy that's gotten separation. He had 4 catches for 86. When you're going at 21.5 per catch, you've had a darn good day. Outside of that, Khalil Shakir did his thing. A little bit of Curtis Samuel. For a minute there, I thought he was part of the offense, and then he went back to being Curtis Samuel 2024. But regardless, the Bills still found enough from that group so that Josh Allen could throw for 280 today, which, the Colts defense isn't great, but I still think that's no small accomplishment.
Yeah, those final 2 drives by the Bills, Indy got back into this game. They actually had the lead 13-10. The Bills go on that touchdown drive. They have a 16-yard completion to Mack Holins. They get into the red zone on a Dawson Knox 34-yard catch, and then Allen runs it in. Bills have the lead back. And then before halftime, they're kind of doing that dance of will they try and go for it? Will they won't try and go for it? They get the first down. They call their timeouts, a couple incompletions, and then Mack Holins, the recipient of some Josh Allen magic for the 44-yard gain. And then, heads up enough he catches the pass on the ground, quickly gets up, runs out of bounds to give them a little more flexibility for a Tyler Bass 47-yard field goal, who was once again very good today, Tyler Bass. 3 for 3 on field goals, and then he had the extended extra point that was, a 47-yard extra point attempt. So 4 for 4 on, important kicks for Tyler Bass. Good to see him build over into this week. We talked about it on last week's show, whether or not that confidence would actually manifest itself into another quality performance the next week when you would think it would matter the most. And it certainly did today.
Yeah, I was impressed by Bass too. And every single time he gets up there, I'm watching, all right, are we still good? Is everything still mentally sound? And he was clean today. And like you said, with some hard kicks, that certainly stood out to me. But getting back to Holins, when you have professionals as your reserves, the Bills called up Jalen Virgil and Terrell Shavers played in this game. But when you have guys like Curtis Samuel and Mack Holins who've been there and done that, who can at least be functional, I think it makes a difference depth-wise. Now, look, we can talk about depth and Mack Holins all we want. It's number 17 that drives the bus. And even though he had 2 interceptions in this game, the thing that, really made this offense go, of course, was another display of Josh Allen ridiculousness. You've got the multiple times he's creating first downs with his legs. Like you said, the end of the first half field goal, he pretty much pulls out of nowhere, as a Josh Allen heave. And it's funny, AJ, I was watching that drive develop, and I'm thinking to myself, if you're the Colts with like 25 seconds to go and the Bills are on like their own 30, 25 area, I want to give them the first down. Like, drop back and hand Josh Allen a 10-yard play, because if you rush him and you force him out of bounds, you bring the 50-yarder into play, which is what kind of happened there. I mean, this is where Josh Allen is at, to where I'm watching a game thinking a defense would be better off handing the Bills 12 yards, because at least they ain't 50 on a rollout, which is what happened.
Yeah, an impressive play by Allen to stick with it after some early mistakes, some missed passes. He had Dalton Kincaid potentially for a touchdown, kind of just overshot him. They have the fourth down stop. Obviously the 2 interceptions. So there was a lot of bad in this game from Allen and the offense, but they made it happen when it mattered most.
Yeah, let's talk about the bad here too, because the thought I had on that is Joe Brady likes to go back to the well with stuff. I mean, they run the same zone run over and over and over. And to the Bills' credit, they are successful with it a whole lot of the time. But this game to me felt like the first one where this defense isn't super talented. This is film study, what the Colts did successfully, in my opinion, in this game. I think it might be time for Brady to find some new stuff, because I don't know, when they play the Chiefs and the Lions, who stop everybody on the ground, and the Niners, who have a really talented defense, the fact that they can watch this Colts film and say, all right, well, we kind of, and look, I want to back up for a second and say, this is me watching it on the field during a game. I might have a different opinion when I review the Bills film from this game, but the feeling I had during the game was, this is the same thing the Bills have been running all year long, the wide receiver screens. And I know some of them work for Khalil Shakir, the zone run plays. It's a lot of the same stuff all the time. And this was the game where it felt like teams now have seen so much of it that they're going to be comfortable defending. Now, they're not always going to win, because the Bills have talented players, and in this game, the Colts don't. But again, when you play more talented defenses, I think this game plan becomes problematic.
I think my counterpoint to that is, when you don't have Amari Cooper, you don't have Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid for a lot of the game, your playbook shrinks on its own. So even just your plethora of plays to choose from goes down. So I think when you have some plays that can work with your personnel, I think it's just human nature, and maybe even the correct human nature, to try and dial in on those. So with the lack of weapons, I think you can kind of excuse that a little bit, but certainly, you got to open it up a little bit to beat some of the more elite teams in this league.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And look, Amari Cooper is talented enough to just open things up because he's that good. But Keon Coleman's not that guy right now. There's some run after the catch with him. There's some physical ability with Coleman, but he's not prepared to be a guy that just walks in as a talent and opens the offense back up. And I think a lot of the feeling I had with the Brady comments were with the run game. It was the same run play. And yeah, Cook hit a couple in the second half. They succeeded a little bit. And I do agree that, not having those top players probably makes it harder. But I think there's more creativity that A, is potentially available, and B, more importantly, that the Bills are going to have to find, because this is not the first time that I've seen. I mean, the Dolphins, I think last week, felt a little bit like they had a handle on what the Bills wanted to do in the run game. And if the Bills can't run the ball, if we're going to go back to Josh Allen having to carry this offense with Amari Cooper playing the role of Stephon Diggs, yeah, they're going to score some points. They're going to move the ball. They're going to put up some decent numbers. But are they going to win in January? I have questions about that, right?
Maybe they've been saving it for the upcoming game.
Yeah, you never know.
They were just trying to get through this game.
Let's talk quick about the fourth down decisions. There were many on both sides in this game. Most of the 4th and 1s, you almost don't have a problem with the Bills trying it, because you have Josh Allen and you can tush push him, even though the Colts did finally stop him on one in this game. I thought the 4th and 3 the Bills went for in the first half was a little hyper aggressive. Again, you're the better team. You have a chance to go up 10. You feel like you're good with your kicker for the first time in a month and a half. Let them go out there and hit a 46-yarder and go up 10. And instead, the Bills try a 4th and 3 play. Colts get a stop, and they go right back down the field and score their only touchdown of the game. Similarly, in the second half, actually, end of the first half, the Colts have a 4th and 1 on their own 39, and they elect to punt instead of trying to go for it. Now, I know you're in the game there, but your defense is not great. It just got shredded in the last drive. I don't see if you have Jonathan Taylor in this great offensive line and you just put up 100 yards in the first half, why are you not going there? I can see the argument against, but I didn't really like either call, and I thought it was unique or interesting or not a coincidence that both of those decisions got punished with points in this game.
Yeah, I think a lot of these 4th down decisions, you can make such good arguments either way that it's almost, coin flips. Honestly, the one that I had the biggest question about was the 4th and 1, at the start of the fourth quarter where they actually converted it.
Totally with you here.
I mean, you're up by 7 points. It seemed like the Colts would have needed something, a miraculous, break, a luck turnover, something to drive down the field twice successfully. I think you kick that field goal and you go up 10 points and you say, all right, let's get on the bus and get out of here. If you get stopped there, you're opening up yourself for some the potential
the same
for
thing
a loss
that happened
there.
in the first half. You're opening yourself up to what had already happened in this game.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, look, hey, the Bills got it, and results matter, and obviously they won the game going away. But yeah, I had the same thought. Just kick the 3, go up by 10, take full control of this game in the fourth quarter, make the Colts do something that seemed otherworldly to come back and beat you. But hey, the Bills have Josh Allen, so they got away with it.
Yeah, they get 5 yards on a 4th and 1 sneak. So
right.
Goes to show how good that play is. I think eventually maybe a team to defend that will literally line up all of their players on the left side of the line of scrimmage and just dare them to go right, because it's left every single time. So we'll see what happens there. You
don't understand how many times I have watched the Bills and other teams try quarterback sneaks on the all-22 and spend 15 minutes going like Zapruder film with it back and forth, thinking, how would you stop this? I actually have plans. I want to run it by the Bills defensive line coach, Marcus West. I have an idea what you'd probably do. I'm sure it's terrible, but I do have a thought, because it is fascinating to look at this play and think there's got to be a way to stop it. And the Colts got one today. I'll be diagnosing that pixel by pixel at some point later this week. I do want to point out, by the way, that this was my best Thad's 3 Things preview ever. That in terms of the 3 things, I nailed them all. Talked about Mack Holins being a contributor as a receiver, talked about the need to control Jonathan Taylor, and obviously the issue with turnovers. And turnovers were a big part of this game. The Bills forcing 4 and giving up 2. And, the Colts do a good job of creating turnovers, and they created, 2 more in this game that kind of hung in the game. However, I didn't get the score. And I actually, to be honest, I almost got the score exactly right. I had 27-20. I was 1 extra touchdown away, or 1 touchdown that wasn't a field goal away from essentially nailing the score. But of course, the only thing I missed in that 3 things, AJ, was the bet, because Joe Flacco on that BS end of game drive did hit the over on his yard number. So I look smart, but lost some money. I'll take the win on that, though, in general.
No, I think that, I think it changed a lot. Touchdowns, fantasies, unders, overs. That was an important, meaningless drive down the stretch. Especially when, as many people pointed out on social media, a great chance to get Mr. Anthony Richardson back in the game, which they decided not to take. And, Joe Flacco, beats you that way.
Joe Flacco was Joe Flacco in this game. By the way, important to some is how you describe the drive at the end of the game. This game in a lot of ways, and we can, break down the different parts that were unique, interesting things to talk about. But this game pretty much, I think, went kind of the way you thought it would go. The Bills scored enough points to win, made enough plays. Josh Allen was ridiculous. Joe Flacco was ridiculous throwing the ball to the other team. I mean, John Taylor got his numbers. I mean, this pretty much checked all the boxes that I think you would have expected for Bills Colts. So let's turn the page on this one. And let's talk about the stretch coming up, because now it's Chiefs, it's Niners, it's at LA Rams, which is not going to be an easy game, but they're not at the same level as the other 3 teams. And then obviously at Detroit. We've seen this Bills team for 10 games now, and they've looked pretty impressive in most of them. I think more impressive than most of us thought they would. So now the question is, can they beat the Chiefs? I think we know they can hang with them, and
they can certainly beat them in the regular season.
But I was going to get there, but the other question is, does it matter if they beat the Chiefs next week? Because this is what Kansas City always does. Regardless, though, I think the more important question is, do we think this Bills team can legitimately hang with the cream of the NFL crop? Because the only 2 times we've seen them go up against those teams, they haven't looked like a team that can really legitimately threaten to win.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting month with 4 really good teams. I think, 2-2 is the obvious guess as to how they're going to fare. 3-1 is a great situation. 1-3 calls into a lot of questions whether or not they can, because really, I mean, you think about it this way: to go on a Super Bowl run, you need to win 3 games to make the Super Bowl, probably, and then 1 to win it. And this is a 4-game stretch in which they're all kind of playoff Super Bowl quality teams. So you kind of get a little mini postseason run here to try and see how you can stretch wins together and stack them together.
Well, let's talk about, you bring up like the record and what they could, should go, whatever. Does it even matter? I mean, they're winning the division. How much are the Jets down by right now? It's got to be like 40, right? Something like that.
They've slowed down 31-6 right now.
Okay, yeah. So the Jets are about to take their 7th loss. The division has been over for weeks now. It's about seeding. I guess that, the Bills can certainly, if they beat the Chiefs, then you can think about, being the 1 seed. But we're talking about, what, 14-3? Well, let's actually discuss this. What's a reasonable 1 seed record for the Bills? Where would they have to go to where you think, okay, they could be the 1 seed with that? Probably 14-3, right?
Yeah, it'd have to be 14-3 with one of those wins coming over the Chiefs because,
right,
the Chiefs' schedule isn't that tough down the stretch, so I don't think they're getting down to 4 wins.
So for this 4-game stretch to matter, the Bills have to go 3-1 and win next week. And that seems, I don't want to say lofty, but I wouldn't call it likely either, because I don't know if we've seen enough from this Bills team to think they can win 3 of these games. I don't know. Look, if you put the Chiefs on this 4-game stretch, I know the Chiefs win 3 of those games. This is a really hard stretch coming up. So I think 3-1 is a reasonable goal. Every game, obviously, it's its own animal. You never know, bounces, whatever. So the Bills can do it. But I'm wondering, I'm trying to like put myself in a spot here where I feel like I can say the Bills can go 3-1. I know they can, but because all of these wins are against teams that are a notch or 3 below what they're about to play, I have a hard time getting to 3-1. And then, so if they're not going to go 3-1, then this stretch is about how do they look, which is important. I mean, you want to have confidence. You want to feel like, hey, remember when we beat the Niners and Lions? We can beat these teams in the playoffs. So that might be more what this is about, just a vibe and a look than it is actually W's and L's. Am I going on a crazy tangent here, or am I making sense?
It definitely makes sense. I do want to point out, I do think the difference between the 2 and the 3 seed, it is tangible. I think, it certainly didn't matter last year that the Chiefs still came into Buffalo and got the win. But if you're trusting the Vegas point totals, the difference between being at home for a game and being on the road for a game is 5 points. So 5 points in a playoff game isn't nothing. And then when you look at the AFC standings, if somehow the Steelers, keep, putting this thing together and they can somehow win the AFC North, which is certainly possible. They play the division games really well and they have that coming down the stretch. If you've got Baltimore sitting in the 5 seed, I think it's definitely very important to stay out of that 4 spot. So there's, obviously I'm not, games are never going to be meaningless, but there are definitely some hidden subplots to where even if you don't get the 1 seed, where you stack up 2, 3, 4 will certainly matter.
So they go 2-2 and they're 13-4. That probably should squarely put them in a 2 or a 3, right? That would probably come down to, can Houston or Baltimore also go 13-4 and win a division, because you're probably going to win a tiebreaker. Well, I don't know if you win a tiebreaker, but you're going to lose a tiebreaker with those teams. So I think the goal in this group is 2-2, and then, don't do anything dumb with the Jets and Patriots end of the year, and you end up 13-4, and you're probably a 2 or a 3 seed. I think that's probably where we play the goal for these 4 games, right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
All right. Well, it'll be fun. Obviously, the Chiefs game next week will be a decided step up in terms of energy and excitement and interest. And, this won't be, they're playing the Colts. They're 4-5. This is going to be a whole different game, short of Kansas City also being undefeated. All right. Anything else from this week before we shut the door on the Bills 4-game easy stretch and open the door on the much harder 4-game stretch?
No, and certainly this goes without saying. Health is going to be a big factor in this game because, Keon Coleman, Amari Cooper, Dalton Kincaid, and then Xavier Worthy even left the Chiefs game. I tried to look up any sort of reports, nothing. So there could be a lot of weapons not in the lineup for that Bills Chiefs game, which will certainly be a lot of fanfare. But, health matters in these types of games.
I'd say advantage Chiefs there too. The less weapons on the field, the better for their defense. Both, even both sides. Mm-hmm. All right. As always, you can watch Buffalo Game Day Recap at RochesterFirst.com. You click on sports, then the 8 Sports Extra tab. You can find all of our extra content there. We're also on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Next week, the big one, 4:25 p.m. Bills, Chiefs. Be there, be square. AJ and I will be there.
And so will Taylor Swift probably. She's in Toronto that weekend.
Oh, that's right. So we'll have an extra special guest, not on our show though, because
that'd be a hell of a get.
Right, but we'd lead with that probably. Okay, yes. For AJ Feldman, I'm Thad Brown, and thanks for watching and listening to Buffalo Game Day Recap. We will see you next week from the Titanic matchup of all matchups.